my name is Bill. Welcome back to the NCAA Football '07 Dynasty Mode Explanation Series. We are in the final week of Bowl Week. There's a national championship game, but I covered that in week 1. So let's go and do a quick rundown of the bowl games from last week, and then I will go and make my predictions for this week. In the New Orleans Bowl, Bowling Green upset in Nebraska, so something Nebraska underperforms. In the Fort Worth Bowl, we had UNLV beat ECU, so the Rebels are better than Pirates, I guess. New Mexico State beat Ball State 34-10. Thank you on that one, because Ball State did not deserve to be in there. In the Hawaii Bowl, Varsity Bowl, Ohio State ran over Western Michigan by a final score of 58-34. Hawaii loses to Kansas State. Kansas State just steamrolled them 56-24. Yeah, they stopped the pass. Boise State beat Navy in overtime 24-21. Colorado State upset Louisiana Tech 26-14. And Arizona State gets upset by Missouri 49-24. Now for the Music City Bowl, we have Florida Atlantic, I just call them FAU, against NC State. The key win for Florida Atlantic came in a 35-28 win against Arkansas State, while North Carolina State's key win came against North Carolina 55-21. North Carolina State's worst loss was a 14-42 loss to Mickey, and FAU's was the 17-31 loss to FIU. It's Sunbelt versus ACC here between the Owls and the Wolfpack. Lane Kiffin has led his team to another conference championship and are looking to be a good team, but Jacob Turner is looking to have that defense slow them down. FAU is coming off a bad conference loss that luckily didn't get them knocked off of the championship, but with a team like NC State, they will pounce on this opportunity to get a win. I say the Wolfpack will get the win here in Nashville. And we now head from UC City Bowl to the Sun Bowl in Troy versus number 21 Notre Dame. Troy's key win was a 20-10 win against Tulane, which, like I said, Tulane is clearly two lanes. They turn it on in conference play, but they turn it off in non-conference play, apparently. And Notre Dame's key win was a 49-10 drumming of Navy. Their worst losses, Notre Dame was a 20-32 loss to Michigan, while for Troy, they also got a bad loss against FIU, which theirs was 17-44. Which I will talk about FIU later on in this video, as they are in a bowl game as well. I think this one's going to be a fight between the Trojans and the Fighting Irish. And of course it would be with Fighting Irish. I got fighting in the name. Troy seems outmatched here, but they have this hard to keep up with Notre Dame. The Irish, though, are just looking to pulverize the Trojans and leave their bodies inside a horse. And I do think that the talent of Notre Dame will be too much for Troy, as Notre Dame will win this one decisively. And now, I know last video I said I went with bowl games that I know that weren't in existence. Changed the name of the bowl games that weren't in existence anymore. But I don't know if the Meineke well, that one is on here as well, but that's a little later. But I don't know if the Jam Sports Bowl is still one, but it's between Michigan State and Mickey. The key win for Michigan State was a 31-13 win against Notre Dame, and for Mickey was a 44-3 win over San Diego State, the Mountain West champs. A key loss for Mickey was a 29-63 loss to Virginia. Yeah. And I'll talk about Virginia's consistency in a moment, along with Tampa Bay's, because of Tampa Bay's matchup, and me talking about them a couple times last week. And Michigan State's worst loss was a 21-31 loss to Iowa. There's only one word that describes these two teams: inconsistent. For Mickey, they could lose to a team like Tampa Bay and Florida State, but let Virginia put 63 on them, yet also won against Maryland and San Diego State. As for the Spartans, they beat a great team in Notre Dame, yet lose to teams in the same caliber as them, which really messed up their season. This might be a close one, but I say Mickey will have a bit more consistency than Michigan State and prevail. And now let's forget about the Champ Sports Bowl and remember the Alamo Bowl. Between Texas A&M and Michigan, 23 ranked Michigan. Now put Michigan first here because they were a lot closer than Texas A&M because Michigan was, sorry about that, I'm dealing with a fly flying around all over here. But yeah, Michigan was a lot closer because they were in the middle of Michigan State and Mickey. So I just went ahead and went them being the first in the key win. And their key win with that 31-26 win against Ohio State that kept Ohio State from winning the Big Ten championship. While Texas A&M's was a 25-24 win against Miami. Their worst losses for A&M was a 17-38 loss to Colorado, and for Michigan was a 20-31 loss to Penn State. A pair of 8-4 teams go head-to-head here in San Antonio. Michigan has had a rough year, but ended with an upset win over heated rival Ohio State. 8. As for the Yankees, on the other hand, they have been on a downward spiral since their first loss to Colorado and are looking to bounce back. Wolverines have a good team when not going against McNary Central. And could control this one easily. I say Michigan takes this one in Alamo Bowl to remember. Because, of course, remember the Alamo, making that joke. Now, speaking of bowl games that I don't know that are in existence anymore, we have the Meineke Car Care Bowl between Clemson and Louisville. Clemson's key win was a 31-21 win against last year's national championship representative and Georgia Tech, while Louisville's key win was a 42-10 win against Cincinnati. Each team's worst loss. Now, I wanted to put my game against Louisville, but this one was way too good not to put on here. They lost 29-32 to San Jose State, giving those Spartans their first win of the year. While Clemson's was a 17-42 loss to Mickey. These future ACC opponents face off here as one of them has a losing record and is underperformed mightily. Because you see their A-, B+, and A. You expect them to be like 7-5, maybe 8-4, with the conference they're in. But 5-7? Really? Anyways, Clemson had high hopes for this year, but are 5-7 and struggling with anything after taking a beating by McNary Central. Louisville also took a pounding by the Bobcats by coming off a devastating, demoralizing loss to San Jose State, a team who had lost 18 games in a row. They lost to a team that lost 18 games in a row and hadn't won a game since last season. And I had to put that as their worst loss because the fact that they lost to the worst team in this entire nation at this moment in time. I don't think the Cardinals have recovered from that just yet. I mean, they've had like a month to recover, but I still don't think Playing wise, they're going to recover. And I think the Tigers are going to win this one. Have a little momentum swing going into next season. And now we head into the AutoZone Liberty Bowl between FIU and Tulane. Where FIU's key win was a 31-17 victory over FAU. Tulane's was a 45-42 victory over Tulsa. Their worst losses for Tulane was a 21-38 loss against Louisiana Lafayette, and for the Golden Panthers was a 31-50 loss to Louisiana Monroe. For the story here, I say let's take a trip to Graceland, enjoy some good Corky's barbecue, walk on Beale Street, and come watch this Liberty Bowl matchup between the FIU Golden Panthers and the Tulane Green Wave. Tulane has lost every non-conference game on their schedule, and FIU is a decent team that could pull out a victory. I mean, Tulane has a good passing offense, and they're going against the average passing defense, so they have that for them. But I say Tulane's going to continue their Tulane mindset and lose to the Panthers. And if there's enough time, they can all go see the Memphis Grizzlies play at the FedEx Forum. Yeah, like I said in the last video, I'm from Memphis, born and raised there for 12 years, and I also worked there as well at FedEx. So that's one reason why these videos have kind of been like inconsistent, because I gotta try to work around my work schedule and also try to do it whenever I can, whenever I'm not asleep, whenever I try to. So we go from Memphis now to Houston and the Houston Bowl between Oklahoma State and Akron. A key win for Oklahoma State was a 20-14 win at Colorado, while Akron's key win was a 38-24 win over Western Michigan at home. Their worst loss was, for Akron, 37-42 loss against Buffalo, while Oklahoma's worst loss was a 17-24 loss to Texas A&M. Story here: Frank Chang and LeBron James are the head coaches in this showdown in Houston. LeBron has led his team coaching-wise to a 500 record, average team all over. As for Frank, he had an undefeated team until they ran into Johnny Football and Johnny Manziel, which was their first loss. And you can see they're on a 3-game win streak, so they're lucky with a win streak into this. And I say the Cowboys will shoot out the Zips in this one. It's going to be a talent gap between these two teams because it's Big 12 against MAC. Now, of course, the last Big 12 MAC matchup, I predicted Big 12 would win. MAC ended up proving me wrong. Wonder if this is going to be the same case and LeBron James is going to come out a winner here. Who knows? Maybe he'll suit him himself. And now we go to a bowl game of a restaurant I'm currently kind of craving right now, Chick-fil-A. The Chick-fil-A Bowl between South Carolina and Miami. A key win for South Carolina was a 45-16 win at Hawaii, which I think locked them into this bowl game. And for Miami, it was that 31-24 win at Virginia that they were able to slide into the ACC championship game. Sure, they lost to Florida State in their rematch, but hey, And their worst loss, not including McNary Central, because I beat up on both these teams, as you can tell by their stats, especially South Carolina's. Well, except for the passing offense. The passing offense is actually decent. For Miami, they had a 35-38 loss at Florida. And for South Carolina, they lost 44-14 to Ole Miss, who finished the year 4-8. Heck, they could have been in that Hawaii Bowl for all we care. And I'm thinking to myself, of course they put the team with the chicken on their logo in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. All joking aside, though, these two teams underachieved heavily because you see A, and B+. And South Carolina was once the number 2 team of the nation. Miami was once highly ranked as well. I think they started the year like number 3, and they're A plus, A minus, A plus. As their, like I said, as their talent would say otherwise. This one of the toughest matchups for me to predict this week, as I don't know what to think of each team. Both went in slumps after losing to me, but Miami recovered enough to even sneak into the ACC championship game. I do think the Hurricanes will win this one over the Gamecocks, as now I'm craving a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A. Maybe some chicken nuggets. Those waffle fries are good though. What are we talking about again? Oh yeah, on to the next bowl game. As we go from Chick-fil-A to the Insight Bowl between number 24 USC and Syracuse. The key win for USC was their 31-16 win over Oregon. As for Syracuse, they got a 31-28 win over Louisville. Their worst losses for Syracuse was a 44-21 loss to Pittsburgh, and USC suffered a 37-30 loss to number 10 Arizona State. USC is underperforming to what they're used to. As for Syracuse, they're overachieving to what they're used to. The Orange do have a slight stats advantage over the Trojans, but USC has to down to mop the floor with them. I wish Syracuse the best, but I gotta say that with USC and them being like one of the best schools, they always seem to get all the good recruits. They don't try hard enough. And I think they will dominate all 4 quarters. Celebrate some more juice when they're done here at the Insight Bowl, as Syracuse will pick up the loss against USC. On to the Outback Bowl, another restaurant between Alabama and number 20 Minnesota. Key win for Alabama was a 35-25 victory over Mississippi State, while Minnesota's was a 32-21 win over Ohio State, which caused the whole debacle of who was going to win the Big Ten. Each team's worst loss for Minnesota was a 45-7 loss against Wisconsin, while Alabama, I could have put in my game, but the one they suffered a couple games afterwards, the one right after that Mississippi State game to be exact, a 38-14 loss against LSU. Let's go Outback tonight as the Crimson Tide goes against the Golden Gophers. Alabama's been coming out swinging as they've lost their past 2 games and want to rebound with a big win. Minnesota, there we go, looks to stop them and make up to their fans for not winning the Big Ten championship this year. But hey, you know what they say, always next year. Here, as a defense will come on top here, as Minnesota will beat Alabama, which, of course, is only something that can happen in a video game. Let's just be honest. Alabama is one of the best college football teams nowadays, and the only way to beat them is in a video game. Now we go from the Outback Bowl to the Cotton Bowl between number 19 Tennessee and number 18 Colorado. The key win for Tennessee was a 35-28 win against South Carolina, which was when South Carolina was still decent. And for Colorado's with their Week 9 victory over Texas, by a final score of 34-24. Worst losses, Colorado's with that 38-7 loss to Nebraska just before the whole bowl season started. Heck, before they even went to the championship game. I think that's probably why they lost. They lost all momentum they had going into that game by losing to Nebraska. As for Tennessee, it was one of the first key games I did on this series in a 49-42 loss to Florida. This game's going to be anything but soft as these 2 teams are looking for hard hits and big plays. Tennessee is looking to have a 10-win season, and Colorado is standing in their way. I'd say it's going to be a high-scoring game with the possibility of overtime as well. With Tennessee coming on top here over a team that lost an underachieving Nebraska squad in their rematch against the Longhorns, but also barely beat the ball that which the Longhorns barely beat the Vols in a high-scoring game themselves. As you can see, I'm not just picking them because of their overall wise, but I'm even picking them because Colorado's on a bit of a slump, and I think they'll force Colorado to be able to pass the ball. And now we go to our last unranked matchup here between Tampa Bay and Virginia. Tampa Bay's key win, I say, is a 44-21 victory over Missouri, and Virginia's is that 63-29 win against Mickey. Their worst losses for Virginia was a 28-31 loss to 2-10 Indiana, and that 28-31 loss came the week before that 63-point bomb on Mickey. And Tampa Bay, I remember this one being a key game. Heck, it was even in the title of the episode, Trap Game in Lubbock, with some question marks and exclamation points around it. 17-29 Texas Tech. Now, one word describes what these two teams need in our last unranked matchup of the year: consistency. Tampa Bay can beat teams like Mickey, Missouri, and Nebraska, yet lose to Texas, Oklahoma, which aren't kind of the same category as Mickey, Missouri, and Nebraska, and they lose to Texas Tech, who had 4 wins this year. Virginia started off the year by beating Washington State, then somehow losing to Indiana, and then crushing Mickey. Both teams need consistency to win this one, and I think the Lightning will have a little bit more strike here with a win, with a little bit more consistency than the Cavaliers, and have another great season that could maybe lead to their shot of being in the Big 12 championship game next year. One can only hope. And now I'm not going to ask you really what's in your wallet, but here we are at the Capital One Bowl between number 17 Florida and number 16 Iowa. Florida's key win was that 49-42 win against Tennessee, because if the Gators lost that one and Tennessee won that one, Tennessee would have been in the SEC East Championship game. Well, in the SEC Championship game instead of them. Granted, it would have been interesting to see if Tennessee was going to beat Auburn, which they lost to Auburn like the week prior. But hey, curiosity is what killed the cat. And Iowa's was a 31-24 victory over Minnesota. Each team's worst loss. Iowa suffered a 59-7 loss to Ohio State. And Florida, here's Ole Miss again, appearing here on the worst loss side, because they barely beat Florida 21-14. A ranked matchup in Jacksonville, possibly the only good football they'll get to see for a while. And I'm not only taking a shot at this because the Jaguars are second, but also because I'm a Titans fan. And the less said about the game earlier today, or technically yesterday, the better, because I'm a little salty about that loss, But the Gators come to town to face the Hawkeyes. Here, both teams have been balanced this year in their games. As you can see, 24th and 17th offenses for Iowa and Florida. But no category like really, really sticks out offensively or defensively, with Florida and Iowa having the 27th and 22nd best defenses respectively. And both will be planning hard to force the other just to go into just one dimension. I think Florida has that advantage and win this one in a close one, maybe even go into overtime. And for the Rose Bowl, we have Penn State ranked 4 versus Oregon ranked 13. Key win for Penn State was a 17-10 victory over Iowa. and Oregon's was that 39-34 win over Arizona State. Their worst losses for Oregon. Jesus Christ, I need to fix this script a little bit because I keep forgetting to put which team's which. As for Oregon, their worst loss was that 30, 16-31 loss to USC, as discussed earlier. And Penn State's only loss came at the hands of Ohio State, 21-14. One of the most prestigious games in all of college football, we have two teams who have had some wonky paths to being conference champs. Oregon had to hope USC lost another game, and they did. Meanwhile, Penn State won on some sort of unexplainable tiebreaker over Wisconsin to claim the Big Ten championship. Because originally they said Wisconsin had it, then they were like, nah, we'll give it to Penn State. I don't know what the tiebreaker was, maybe because they had a better defense. Heck if I know. And what could have and possibly should have been Ohio State here if they didn't lose to Michigan. This will be a defensive battle, as I don't see many points on this game's scoreboard unless they come from turnovers. I say Penn State will win this defensive duel in a close one. And now we leave the Field of Roses to go to the Orange Bowl. Like I said, I think it's probably because they had a better defense. Heck if I know. I'm not the one who decided who was the Big Ten champion. And this was back before the Big Ten had a championship game of their own. It was just whoever had the best conference record, you get it. As we have number 11, Florida State here in the Orange Bowl going up against number 5, Wisconsin. Florida State's key win was a 28-23 win over Mickey, and Wisconsin's was a 21-14 win over Iowa. Wisconsin's worst loss was that 56-39 loss to Ohio State. As you see, if Ohio State didn't lose to Michigan, Ohio State would be the one in the Rose Bowl, and Penn State possibly could have been in the Motor City Bowl. Probably some better bowl game because the fact that you see Ohio State would have had the tiebreaker over Wisconsin and Penn State, beating both. But since neither team faced off against each other, I don't know how they determined it. And Florida State only had 2 losses for the year, and I decided to put my matchup against them when they lost to me 224-0. These two teams are two of the best in the country. Florida State is one of the best teams overall, and Wisconsin has a great defense and a wonderful running game. Just don't ask them about the passing game. Them have wonderful defense and offense when they don't face off against McNary Central. This game will be one of, if not the best game of the bowl season. I think that the Badgers will come close to winning, but I think their rushing offense might get shut down and they're going to be forced to pass, which, as you can see, they're not the best at doing that. And the Seminoles will come away in a close victory, in a thrilling victory. And now, I say, it's time to get some sugar as we go on to the Sugar Bowl between number 3, undefeated Auburn, and number 8, Oklahoma. Auburn's key win, I say, was a 24-17 win over Arkansas, and Oklahoma's key win was a 47-42 win at Tampa Bay. And of course, there's one loss between both these teams, and Oklahoma's loss was a 38-42 loss in the Red River rivalry against Texas. Auburn is one of 3 undefeated teams heading into this bowl season. They have their toughest challenge yet going against Oklahoma. Sooners are a great team and should be a great game against the Tigers. Auburn will have a defense that could be able to stop Oklahoma's offense, but I don't think their offense can keep up against Oklahoma's defense. I'd say the Sooners will win and end another undefeated season, which means there will be 2 undefeateds left. And considering that I control my team, I think there's going to end up being just 1 undefeated season. Yours truly at the end of it. And the final bowl game prediction of this virtual 2008-2009 season is Texas versus Arkansas. Texas's key win was that 42-38 victory over Oklahoma, and Arkansas's was a 38-35 victory over number 17 Florida. The worst loss for Arkansas was that 24-17 loss to Auburn, and for Texas was a 24-34 loss to Colorado back in week number 9. They got their revenge in the Big 12 championship game. And the finale before the national championship. The Longhorns and Razorbacks will go head to head. It's going to be a wonderful game. It's going to be a high scoring game, I'd like to say, if the defenses don't decide to step up, because both have very good defenses. Yeah, Texas has a top tier offense and a great defense that can go against a top tier team in Arkansas. Texas has to force Arkansas to pass because they have the 3rd best rushing attack with the 100th ranked offense through the air. I predict this one might even go into a little bit of overtime as well, as Texas will win a close game against a top team in Arkansas. And that's all the bowl games. Thank God I finally got through all of them. This is going to be fun to do next season. And after this, I will do the recruiting. I'll explain a bit more in the next episode after we review all of these games. But until then, I will see you all next time.